Vedi tu vak.
Indeed.
As they don't say in Germany.
You know what else they don't say in Germany?
Vat.
Mercy.
This is Epic Battle Cry Skirmish 222. $3 in a chainsaw.
Hello and welcome to Epic Battle Cry.
Woohoo!
This is the place where we cut through the crap to bring you the real deal in the gaming industry today. As always, I'm your host, Tony Grice, and with me is Daniel Kaiser and Brent Adams. DK, how are you doing this week?
Welcome back to EBC, everyone. My question for you guys is, does anybody know what time the Super Bowl actually starts? Because
I was waiting for Peyton to tell me, but I don't think he knows.
I don't think they know. I have to send a memo to the Broncos because I'm pretty sure that they missed out on the entire frigging the entire game. In fact, I'm pretty positive that on this podcast today, I will make more points than the Broncos made in the entire Super Bowl.
This is what legalizing marijuana
that's a challenge.
does.
When Bruno Mars has more time on the field than Peyton Manning, you're in trouble. And I know the Red Hot Chili Peppers were saying it's give it away now, but I don't think they were talking to the Broncos.
And yet
They were listening, though,
They
apparently.
were listening. Oh, my God, what a disaster, but
Look
there
on the
you go.
bright side. Not the worst Super Bowl that the Broncos have ever had.
That's true, and pot's still legal, so, you know.
Always look on the bright side of life.
Man, that was I couldn't even give a shit really who won. I mean, I was just watching.
Yeah.
But it was painful to watch.
It was
like it was just like you're just like, my God, like put somebody else in. Give somebody else a shot. I mean, this obviously is not working.
Eli was up there. I think you can try it out.
Yeah. I know. Some people thought he was in the game. All right, Brent, how are you doing this week, man?
What's up? My infants of impalement! My newborns of napalm!
Yes.
How art
Some
thou?
impalement. That's-
Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you.
That is definitely an intro worthy of fatherhood, and welcome to fatherhood.
Thank you, my friend.
How's everything so far?
It's great, man. It's really, really amazing. It's kind of strange that we're actually. It's been 2 weeks since he was born, but nice.
It's like a total recall of
it is. It's oh god. But anyway, it's been 2 weeks since since she was born, a little over 2 weeks, and really just now we're kind of settling down into some semblance of normal life. Because like the first few days we were in the hospital.
Yeah.
And then after we got home from the hospital, it was just an endless, kind of stream of friends and family that were with us, and so it's just the three of us now, and we're kind of getting used to what life is like with Zeely, and it's amazing, man. It's so fantastic. I can honestly say that these last 2 weeks have been maybe the happiest in my life. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and just and you didn't even play Grand Theft Auto 5 during that time. I bet. I don't know.
It's weird. I mean, because you know me, I'm a hopeless workaholic, and this is like the first time in my life where I could like literally just like sit on the couch and like watch her grow a centimeter at a time.
Yeah.
And be perfectly
Wait, you could actually
content.
see that? You might have to take her back to the hospital. I'm not sure.
This could be
Dude,
a problem.
She might have been, because I tell you, I got to meet her a few days ago, and I could not believe. I mean, she's already like holding her head up,
Wow.
she's
She's
fucking
very
like she's
strong.
got a grip like Brent. I mean, like it's. I swear, I was like, look, she's gonna be like taking kids' money here in like a week, out in the
It won't take long.
She's already playing Candy Crush. I mean, she's completely worked into the system.
No. There's no Candy Crush in this household. Not
Yes,
until
not after the Banner
not
Saga
after the Banner Saga debacle.
incident.
No.
Yes.
By the way, legally, if you're gonna say it, you have to say Candy Crush.
Candy Crush Saga. That's right.
Because now we owe them $4.
Yeah.
Now we do, yeah.
Bastards.
All right, guys. Well, we have plenty to go to after our little hiatus, so let's go ahead and run through the gauntlet.
The gauntlet! Gauntlet!
All right, guys, we're here in the gauntlet, and the first bit of news that we're going to talk about this week was kind of an interesting bit of news that Microsoft has acquired one of their big third-party franchises that was big to them. Brent?
Again.
Yeah, exactly. Who they got this time?
All right, so it was announced this week that Microsoft Studios has acquired the rights to the Gears of War franchise from Epic Games.
Wow.
And in addition to that, they've set up a new division, Black Husk Studios, which is based in Vancouver, British Columbia, which I hear is up in Canada.
Yeah.
And they are going to be taking over future development of the franchise. In addition to that, Epic's former director of productions, Rod Ferguson, is going to be joining Microsoft to play, quote, a key studio leadership role, end quote.
Nice.
At Black Husk. And I think that, this is something that they've done in order to try and quell any fan worry that the series is going to go into the hands of people who don't really know what to do with it, and that it's the pedigree is going to suffer moving forward or whatever. Microsoft, of course, wants to assure people that's not going to be the case, and the hire of Rod Ferguson was a critical strategy in accomplishing that. So, like Halo before them. Microsoft is getting these franchises that have been huge system sellers. I mean, I think that anybody who's looking at the situation honestly can say that Halo and Gears of War have been huge system sellers for Microsoft in the last generation. And Halo going back to the very first Xbox, obviously. But these have been huge franchises for Microsoft consoles. And so I guess it's not a huge surprise that Microsoft wants to get them under their own roof and continue producing them. But that's all kind of interesting. But it's also not the only big Microsoft news, because just breaking as we're recording, we found out that Microsoft has named their next CEO, the guy that's going to replace Ballmer. And I'm probably not pronouncing this right, but it's Satya Nadella, I think. And he is.
Good enough. He's not listening.
Well, I mean,
or
yet,
is he?
Or is he?
But anyway, he's going to be taking over, and they've also said that Bill Gates is transitioning into a slightly different role in the board of directors, founder, technology advisor. So there's some interesting changes going on.
Yeah, lots
over
of changes.
at the house that Windows built. What do you guys think?
Well, as far as the new CEO, I mean, there's a lot of questions of whether or not they were going to bring in somebody from external or promote somebody internally, like they ended up doing. And I think that the shareholders and people following them from a business perspective understand that Microsoft really needs to make some big changes with their approach and with their identity. They dominated for so long as this this brand behemoth that was just you were forced to be a part of what they were doing, and they owned so much of it. Now they're having a little bit of an identity crisis, trying to figure out what they're doing. How that pertains to the Xbox One, the Xbox division is profitable for them, so it is something that I think that will be interesting to see how they transition with this new CEO, if there's going to be a big focus on one particular area, or if it's going to be just kind of business as usual. But changes is in the air, definitely, for Microsoft. As far as Gears of War is concerned, I think this is great, but there's also kind of, wondering about the life cycle. Once a franchise reaches a peak, I don't know if Gears of War has the same value and merit. I don't know what they paid for this, or
$3.
One and a chainsaw. No, but the games themselves are one thing, but there's also the branding. This was like the complete franchise, right? So all the books, all the comics, all the toys, all the Legos, whatever. That's all Microsoft now, which is a big thing.
And face it, that's the really valuable stuff.
Would be pretty badass. I'm not gonna lie.
There is, Gears of War is a huge franchise, but I do wonder from a gaming perspective, it's a good time because we're going on to the new platform, Xbox One. What can they do with this franchise in that universe and with that hardware? It'll be very interesting. Having Ferguson on board obviously is key for them to bring over fans, but I don't know. I really feel like a franchise like that has been going for a while. Has it completely run out of steam, or is it something that can be reinvented? Will they try to reinvent it, or will it just be more of the same? I'm very intrigued to see what they do with this, because
what's next for Epic?
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
That's kind of what I was going to say. Is like, and just briefly talking about the CEO situation. I think they put a lot of interest into who they put in that role, and I think they picked someone who's works with others a little bit better, I think, than Ballmer probably did. And I think in a way they sort of think that maybe that's going to help them bring some of their other properties around, and frankly might kind of show some of the success that the Xbox division has had in more of their other kind of divisions. So I think it's a good call. It'll be interesting to see, especially with this guy having he had a large bit to do with cloud computing. So it'll be kind of interesting to see, with the Xbox really, kind of using that as one of its leveraging strengths down the road is its kind of connection to the cloud.
Let's just hope their future's not too cloudy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but I think honestly, it sounds like it was probably a pretty good choice. But getting back to the Gears of War piece, I actually think that this is probably a good thing for Microsoft and for the franchise. I don't actually think maybe the one that I'm kind of, interested in is the whole thing with Epic. Like, why were they selling this off? It actually felt like this was one of their maybe most, kind of prolific titles as of late, compared to some of their, bigger titles like the Unreal franchises, things like that really have kind of gone away over the years. Yeah. It's definitely, along with Halo, it's one of the two kind of system exclusive, but yet not first party titles that Microsoft's had in their pocket for so long. So I think that was absolutely a perfect pickup for Microsoft, depending on what they paid for it, which I would think is probably a fair price. But I also think that the series, like the games here lately, it's one of those things, like, I don't know that maybe, and I don't know if this is Epic or Microsoft or who, I don't think that it's necessarily gotten the quite the push that, say, like the Halo franchise has, because it's, to be honest, I don't think it's quite as popular, although when you talk to, players out there, I think actually the fan base for the Gears series is still there. I think it's really there. So maybe this is a good thing. Maybe in a way this is kind of like when they had was it 343 Studios?
Halo.
Yep.
That do the Halo franchise. I will be interested to see who the team is they put on this.
I do get the sense though that the Gears franchise is not as a surefire bet as Halo. Like, you release a Halo game, Halo fans are going to buy it. Like, you release
not as
Gears...
Halo, but you're also talking not as Halo. I mean, let's be honest. Like, it's not as big as arguably one of the biggest franchises in gaming. That's comparing. That's like saying, like, I've got a really successful company, but it's not as successful as Apple. Right, so I consider it a disappointment. I mean, it's like
so you're Square Enix.
I would say if you look at like the players, like the amount of people playing games, Gears is always up there. Yeah, like every month, it's still up there in how many people are playing this. Like, it's definitely not at the level of Halo, but I would actually argue that it's probably,
it's a big
like
franchise.
The third or fourth down after like a Call of Duty, a Battlefield, and a Halo. Which, I mean, that's not bad.
That's the best there is. So
it's good company. So maybe Epic was just ready to move on. Maybe they've got a Destiny, kind of thing that they're
they got to challenge themselves too. I think when you work in this business or any business, I think evolving, coming up, and really, if you think about it from a standpoint of, like, if you're a developer, you set out with a goal. If day one they're like, let's create a franchise that is successful, almost like console defining, and make it so big that we could then sell it off before we move on to our next thing. Yeah. Like, if you could follow that path and do it, like, okay,
more power to you.
And maybe this is a good move for them in terms of like multi-platforming. Like, this kind of gets rid of that one exclusive that they had to do. Like, not saying they had to do, but that they did for another company. And so now, like, their properties, they can kind of look at, well, we're making for all platforms, and that way we don't have to sort of feel like we're already cutting out half of an audience, making one game. Yep. Anyway, it's interesting news, and we'll definitely, I'm sure, hear more and more about it as time goes on. So next up, we have a little bit of news around the Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor game that's coming up. And DK, it's a little bit of a bummer if you're wanting to play with friends.
Less is Mordor when it comes to friends in the upcoming Middle-earth game, because there will not be a multiplayer component. Monolith has confirmed via Twitter, where all official news breaks, that they said, alas, no co-op. Shadow of Mordor is being crafted wholly as a single-player experience. And this on the heels of quite a bit of hype, as we got to see the debut gameplay focusing on this nemesis feature of enemies and combatants that you'll square off against in the upcoming Shadow of Mordor. what do you guys think of the game? Because we've finally gotten to see kind of what these systems are like, what the graphics are like, and what Assassin's Creed animations look like when they're put to good use. And B, what do you think of the lack of multiplayer? Does it affect it? Personally, I think that that's a good thing, but I'm interested in your guys' opinions.
It's just kind of, the thing for me is I was just kind of reflecting on, the 5+ years we've been doing the show, and it's interesting that the news headline has gone from this game has multiplayer to this game doesn't have multiplayer.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? It is kind of an interesting footnote, just along the gaming journey that things have changed to the degree that it's now noteworthy that a title is single player. But I love the idea of the game, but for me, it's all going to be execution. It's just all going to be what it feels like to play. But as
looks
far
like there's
as
a lot of
what they're
executions
showing
in it, from what I saw.
Yeah, no doubt about that. But I mean, it's orcs, and they don't count. So
that's true.
They're moving in a positive direction. It looks cool based on the footage we're seeing so far.
TG?
Yeah, I mean, it does. It looks great. Like, it looks great. I don't know what it is, but Lord of the Rings to me has not really stood out in terms of the gaming franchise in some time, and I do worry a little bit that people are probably going to I just feel like this series is going to have a little bit of a harder time just getting that initial consideration.
Well, just standing out.
Yeah.
Just standing out. Now, I will say, if people get a look at the game, like if the trailers get a lot of play out there and people really start, I think that they'll probably be much more likely to give it a shot, because let's be honest, it's Assassin's Creed in Middle-earth. I mean, it looked like
which you just say that and you're like, that's a fucking great idea.
Well, right. Exactly. Now, it'll be interesting to see if that, sort of, if people want that, but I can't imagine them not. I mean, it's great, what seems to be, at least on the surface, great gameplay and great visuals, and we love the storied franchise of course the world that it's in. So yeah. I think it looks like, in my opinion, the first game in a long time based on the Middle-earth kind of world that I am interested in playing. Yeah. And that's kind of coming from someone who really just hasn't had an interest in the game side of things, like the movies and the books and everything. I've always been a huge fan of it, but this, looks pretty good.
I personally,
the last of co-op, I will say, to me, again, this sort of, like, we talked a little bit, last time we were on, talking about, kind of limiting of how many people were in a multiplayer game, things like when they take away features or don't have features that you sort of expect or sort of think would fit well with a game, it can kind of color your opinion of it. And I gotta be honest, now, whether you agree with this on Titanfall or not, I gotta think this is the type of game where I sort of feel like co-op would have been a good fit for this type of game. So it kind of makes you wonder why it's not going to have it, but hey. Yeah,
no, I'm looking forward to seeing what they cook up, and I definitely am intrigued by the Nemesis system. I think it sounds really cool. It might sound completely pansy to some people, but everyone has different personal tastes. The game definitely seems like a really, really dark, violent, I mean, kind of my Tomb Raider argument, just for me personally. And, like the second Hobbit movie, no spoiler alert, but it's like increasingly more violent, like just like super intense with everything, and this video that they showed was pretty intense. So if I see that continue, it's that's not a turn on to me, so that's something that might deter me from playing it, although I'm very interested in the systems they've set up and the obviously the ability of an all new game in this universe. But if it's too extreme with that stuff, it's going to turn me off.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see. We've got a good deal more time before it'll actually be out later this year, so hopefully we'll get more details.
There you go.
Something that we did finally get a few more details on, and something that I think a lot of people, I don't know, had maybe just sort of resigned to a feature being a certain way, and it looks like it might be a very different way, is backward compatibility of previous PlayStation games on the PS4. We've heard a lot about the acquisition of Gaikai and the PlayStation Now service that is going to be to play some of the old, what we thought was, or at least I think a lot of us thought was the PlayStation back catalog, might only just have been like PS3, or at least a few differences there. So, Brent, can you tell us a little bit about this story from Digital Foundry?
Yeah, so and I think it's important to just remind everybody that this is kind of rumor status right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's no official confirmation on this. This is a report. coming from industry insider sources, et cetera, et cetera.
But it is out there, so they have to answer.
But it's on the internet, so it means
it's on the internet, so it must be true.
Somebody tweeted it, so that's official as far as I'm concerned.
What we are hearing is this. We are hearing that Sony might be looking to bring PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games to the PlayStation 4 through emulation, as opposed to the PlayStation Now game streaming service that they talked about at CES. Obviously,
as in playing your discs in the system, not like emulated over like the PlayStation Now service.
That's the really important thing, because I mean, obviously PlayStation Now is probably going to cost money. I think that we all anticipate that this is going to entail some kind of charge, that they're not going to be able to just include this wholesale with a PSN Plus subscription. Yeah. But the real question here is, if you assuming that this works in the way that Tony's suggesting, which is certainly what that was what I thought of when I first saw this. Is like, okay, we're talking about, I put a PlayStation 1 disc into my PlayStation 4 the same way that might work like on a PC, as an example, that they're going to build an emulator that's going to be an app you install on your PlayStation 4 for the older titles. If that's the case, then I think that this is fantastic. I think this is a really, really great move. However, we don't fucking know that, and if there's any possibility that this is just, look, we're going to release basically old versions of games on the PSN store, and you can buy them, and then you can play them, and they're basically going to run an emulation. Then I don't think that this is all that great. I mean, if this is just an opportunity to buy the same game over again,
it's not even necessarily bad. It's just not as good as,
if they are going about this where you're going to be able to use your old PS1 and PS2 discs to actually play those games. That's fantastic.
So just in a little bit of clarification, because like the story in Digital Foundry, the way they kind of put it is, they have an insider who's essentially saying that they think Sony is going to put out in a sense like emulation of the previous games, to where you use your game, you put it in, it will play that game using an emulator similar in a sorts of like what you play on a PC,
right?
Which you can have up higher resolution. Maybe it doesn't actually like have higher textures because it's using the contents of the disc, but it can run them better than the original hardware could, and make them look better. There's also like what I think Brent's talking about is, you could have downloaded updated games, like something like the Final Fantasy X and 10-2.
Right.
That are coming out, which are, you buy these new versions that are essentially just updated, emulated with higher res textures and higher things of those games. Or there's even the third possibility of, you'll just be able to play those games possibly through some sort of updated graphics over that streaming version of PlayStation Now. So I mean, there's kind of like three options out there. The Digital Foundry story, they kind of say that they're the way they word it is that their source is saying that you might have that first option, which is the discs you currently own, not rebuying them, or at least, it'd really suck is if they're like, no, you use your discs. You do have to buy the emulator, though, each time. That would really suck. But like, if it is just a thing where you put it in, it downloads like, whatever that emulator is, maybe one time, or it's part of the firmware, that would be awesome, and I really hope that's what it is.
I hope so as well.
I totally agree with both. If it is that, I really think that it opens up a lot of possibilities, and just really focuses on fandom. There's ways to leverage your brand and leverage your. It's not always just about making money. I mean, it is at the end of the day for a company, but there are ways of doing things to infuse energy and enthusiasm into your install base, into your fans, to get them excited about stuff. If you could do those at a low cost that will then engage and keep people coming back for more, that would be fantastic. And this might be something simple, hopefully. I mean, how many people have like discs sitting around from PS1, PS2? It'd be kind of cool just to pop it in and, pay for the $5 for the emulator or whatever, and then just run whatever the hell you want. I think it'd be awesome.
Well, and ultimately, those things, I don't think that those things can really be levered. I mean, with few exceptions. I mean, certainly like a Final Fantasy VII or something like that.
Yeah, there might be enough, to leverage some sort of sales out of it.
Right, but for the most part, I don't think that just the blanket ability to play PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games is not enough of a huge thing that you can like necessarily make money off of that in and of itself. But it is a value add. That can be more of an incentive for a PlayStation 4 purchase.
Well, and I was going to say, to me, it would be more of a value add if they actually did it as sort of their push for the need for PlayStation Now.
Right.
And I will say I sort of, from a business perspective, I actually almost think that would really be, because to me, the emulator situation, you're always going to run into the fact that the emulators won't support every single game. They just, unfortunately, they just can't. It's not quite that easy to just write one emulator that supports everything. Even the emulator on like the PlayStation, the PSP and the PS Vita that emulates like PlayStation 1 games, it supports a lot of games outside of the ones officially supported by Sony, but not every single one of them. So the thing I think would be interesting is if they kind of put this as more of like a value add, like, hey, if you have PlayStation Now, you have to pay for the PS3, maybe each PS3 game you get, or you pay a monthly service and get all those games, plus you get a back catalog of PS2 and PS1 games. And, I could see where they could use that as a value add to one of their other services. Mm-hmm. I don't really, in a roundabout way, I think this is great because I think they're at least looking at ways of bringing these titles to users of a current system so that you don't necessarily have to, kind of keep that other system constantly by your side, having your PS3 hooked up or, PS2 or 1, depending on if you got...
Hey, if it means I could play Thrill Kill, I'm in.
Hey.
Yeah, I don't think it will, actually, sadly. But anyway...
Wait, didn't that game leak at some point online?
Oh, it leaked. Yeah, I've played it, but I don't think it ever got out officially.
I think Tony leaked when he played it.
I did. That game was badass. What did it turn into? Def Jam, Fight for New York, or something like that. Anyway,
I thought it was the Wu-Tang.
You're right. Yeah, it was the Wu-Tang game. That's right.
It was the Wu-Tang game,
which was just not quite as good, but still a lot of fun. Anyway, last but not least, we get a release date on arguably one of the biggest releases for the Wii U in the foreseeable future till they replace it. Mario Kart 8 is coming out this year. DK, when can we expect it?
May. We don't have a specific release date, but we did find out from Nintendo President Satoru Iwata that they are really, as we'll talk about in the main topic, they're in a bind trying to really pump up a lot of what Nintendo is doing, and unfortunately the Wii U doesn't have. It has some great games coming down the pipe, so it's really important that fans know when they're going to be able to get their hands on them. And we do know that you'll be able to race around the Mario Kart track. I mean, we're just one of the best franchises in gaming here.
And this version looks badass.
It really does.
I played a little bit of it, and it's fun.
It looks really fun. Is it a system seller for you guys? Do you think it's going to move units in May?
I don't know. I mean, it's
may?
right on the edge. It's right on the edge. The Mario Kart franchise is huge, and I know people that this was like Mario Kart was like the only thing they ever played on their Wii. They didn't fucking care about Wii Sports. They only played Mario Kart.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely got the potential to do that. The question is just, is the game itself going to be compelling enough? Is it going to have enough new? Is it going to have enough new things it's bringing to the table that it can actually compel people into buying a new piece of Nintendo hardware versus just going back and playing the Mario Kart on the Wii they already have?
It looks gorgeous, though. They just need to put a bundle.
It looks fantastic.
And it runs amazing.
A Wii U bundle.
Well, that's a great idea. The problem is, and I think how Brent was saying, the Wii, that was one of, I know you're exactly right. I know a ton of people that literally just played it for that game. The problem with the Wii was a lot of people just played their Wii for like one game. That they used Wii Sports, or they played Mario Kart Wii. They had these couple of games that were worth having the system for. I will say that the Wii U is not quite, it doesn't have that install base where enough people would just go out and pick up Mario 8 or Mario Kart 8, and then other people would be like, oh, that's so awesome, I'm going to go out and get a system. It's just, I don't know. I don't think that it's a system seller. I mean, not to say that it won't sell some systems, don't take me wrong, but it's not something that I think is going to drastically change the marketplace. We'll get into it in a little bit more here, some of the other difficulties around that. I will say I will definitely be picking it up in May, because having already played a little bit of it, it runs. Me and Brent talked about this a while ago, but games that run like a solid 60 frames a second, at least console games, PC games, kind of spoil you to a degree because you're used to high frame rates. But on the console, having like that really smooth frame rate, it just changes the gaming experience. Recently playing Super Mario World 3D was one of those where it just made the game better. I mean, you could just tell. It just, I think this is definitely going to be a lot of fun, and anybody that has a Wii U, I think, will be picking this up. Yeah. Don't know that it's going to move a lot of other people that don't already.
I don't know that it will sell systems either, but I do know that like previous incarnations in the series, that it definitely won't lack appeal.
Well, welcome back, everybody.
All right, guys. Well, we are here in the main topic this week, and the first, the thing we're going to talk about is obviously Nintendo over the last year or so has really seen some hard times, and especially here recently, we've got more and more news of missing sales expectations of the Wii U and just different difficulties going through the company. The one positive, I guess, is it does sound like Nintendo is at least starting to loosen their sort of take on what they need to do. They're not so hard and fast to what they've always kind of the way they've been. So, Brent, can you kind of take us down some of the stories that have come out over the last couple of weeks, and what are some of the things Nintendo is maybe looking to do to try to get
aside
back
from
out there?
seppuku?
Yeah. Yes, ritual suicide apart. The interesting thing about the situation Nintendo finds itself in right now is that they've had such great success in the past, and it sounds like they've been pretty smart about their finances, and it does give them some options right now with how they're going to proceed. But having said that, as you pointed out, Nintendo is in a situation that they're going to have to make some changes, and it's probably best that they're talking about making the changes now rather than waiting until they cross some point of no return. Because right now, they can at least have some control over what happens. But the bottom line, I suppose, is that Nintendo is... They're struggling a little bit. They're not meeting sales expectations on hardware. They've had this huge success with the Wii that I think everybody kind of recognized was an outlier, and that was probably not going to be something that they were going to be able to duplicate, because it was just such a legitimate phenomenon. And so now Nintendo is come off that, and they're back to where they've got to compete in the video game space against these other companies like Microsoft, like Sony, like Apple.
Yep.
They've got to compete with platforms like Android and PC.
Yep.
And
it's just like the first time they're even admitting that there's like a market outside of their own in a roundabout way.
That's right. Well, and that's the thing. They've stood apart for so long, and they've done their own thing, and it's worked for so long. But it does kind of feel to me as though the world outside is finally kind of catching up, and suddenly Nintendo is finding itself in this position where they may not be all that well equipped to compete with these companies. As we've talked about in the past, they are woefully lagging behind in any kind of online strategy. And as far as one of the stories that we're going to be linking to in the show notes that's really fascinating is the talk that they are going to be merging their console and handheld teams into a single unit in order to create this ecosystem within the company where they're going to be able to essentially design games that can run on either handheld or portable devices, and that this is a paradigm they're taking from things like iOS and Android, where you have a single operating system that can run on multiple devices and play the same game. And Sony has made inroads into that. Sony made a big push with the Vita that you'd be able to play. Basically, you'd be able to take your PlayStation 3 game and port it to the Vita very, very easily. But this is something that we're kind of seeing, that all of these outside influences are finally beginning to kind of chip away at the at the house that Mario built. So I guess the question that we kind of come down to here is, they're possibly looking at a merger and acquisition in order to push Nintendo forward. And what do you guys think about that? What do you guys think about the idea of Nintendo possibly merging with some other entity in order to give them a leg up in this new console generation?
I don't think it's necessary. I mean, health monitors aside, pay cuts aside, they would be remiss to not try the most obvious and probably most pivotal and promising approach that they could come up with. As I've said on this show before, my belief and a lot of other people's belief is that they're overlooking the most valuable thing they have, which is their brand identity. And like you said, now I totally understand the concept, like Reggie Fils-Aimé and a lot of people will say, they want to get Nintendo hardware in your hand and keep that experience exclusive to their hardware. I get that. There's extreme value in that, and that is what they're going to do. That's what they should do. But it doesn't mean they can't create alternate experiences using their reputable brands that are out there. The reason why they've become so huge with the Wii U, and again, that was lightning striking and very far-fetched to think that it's going to strike twice and that they're going to be able to tap into that casual audience. If they were smart, they would recognize that was a one-trick pony. We milked the shit out of that, and we did what every company dreams of doing. Let's not try to do that twice. Let's focus on what we can do next. Understanding that at that point, what did they do really on paper? They attracted the casual audience with an approachable method of play through brands and through things that they had. So where has that casual audience gone? To mobile. To these devices. Take your franchises and put them on mobile in ways that don't detract from the experiences on 3DS. The good thing they have going for them is that they've already built hardware like the 3DS that's not able to be replicated on just a standard phone. So they can produce a unique experience in something like, A Link Between Worlds, and all these games are unique on the 3DS because of their gameplay, because of them taking advantage of the dual screens and whatnot. But that doesn't mean that you can't have a 99-cent game or resell maybe some of the older games from the library, but really create different experiences. I would buy both A Link Between Worlds and a Zelda game on iOS or on Android. I would buy both. Those instantly become my most highly anticipated games. They're stopping themselves from what would be a very lucrative platform just because they don't own it, and they need to try that first before they try merging with somebody else, is my opinion.
I definitely agree with you. Like, I think the point you made, and that's something I think was a great point I was going to sort of touch on, is the fact that they kind of missed out on the fact that, like, the market that they sort of owned with the Wii in that casual gaming market, like, that just moved to another platform.
Exactly, it's still there.
Had they just merely adapted to that and moved some, not all, but some of their franchises, and like you say, like there's even that rumor that kind of came out ahead of these that they were going to start making smaller games on the mobile platform, like for cell phones, that would point people to, like, hey, if you like this, the full experience is over here on this platform. I got to be honest, I think that they're right now, they need to sort of reel themselves in just a tiny bit. Like they're now, I think they're starting to just throw everything out. We're going to do all of this.
Yeah.
The fact is, I agree. I don't think that they necessarily need to really look at. Frankly, I don't think there's anyone, except if they were to acquire Microsoft or Sony, maybe, that's like, which they're not going to do. Like, there's no merger or acquisition, I think, that could really kind of help them. The thing that I think they need to do, and I actually think that Marcus Beer put out an Annoyed Gamer not too long ago, and he was like right on point. Like, they need to do a few things, but one of the biggest things is they bringing their consoles together, which is good in the future. Like, so basically saying that in the future, games that are coming out on one platform or the other can kind of be interchangeable and easier to develop. So you'll have more games on more platforms, yada yada yada. The only thing is, those are new platforms down the road. I'm not so sure that people are really excited about that, especially their diehard fans, which have put money into a Wii U and have already bought their handhelds. The handhelds a little less so because they're used to buying new handhelds every so often. But like people that just bought a Wii U, I don't think that they're that excited hearing that that Nintendo's working on a new platform kind of down the road already. I do think that the whole them getting out on mobile devices absolutely is the case, and I don't necessarily know why they don't make, something like Pokemon. To me, is a perfect platform to do on mobile. Yeah. It's short gameplay.
They have like an app, right? They have like a $5,
but it's just a Pokedex. It's it's really just looking at the Pokemon. But here's the thing: I dare say they've sold a blue million of that. Yeah. And it's really nothing. There's not much to it. Yeah. So putting their actual games on that platform, I absolutely think is good. I do think that some of these things, like their focus on the health market and things like that, I don't think those are bad. But I don't really think that it's like, I feel like it's like, look, you've got bigger things to worry about. I don't really think this is taking you down a path that gets you somewhere. The last thing though I want to mention is I think that he has some good aspects, but they definitely, I think, need new leadership.
They need new leadership.
Well, but the other thing is,
I agree.
Not necessarily just new leadership. There's ingrained in their company is tradition, and they're very stubborn. So, it's the leadership would have to shake up the entire ship. You know what I'm saying?
Don't you think they're? I mean, like to me, with as in the last couple of months, in the last year, we've seen progressively more and more and more of the. Like I think that they're getting to that point where like, look, we got to do something. So I think they're at the ripe point now to make those changes. I don't think that they were there a year ago. I think now stockholders and the people at the company, at the top of the company are ready. And frankly, I'm going to be honest, I think they need to make changes across the board.
Yeah. Japan
and North America, and I'm not really sure the leadership in Europe, but like Reggie, as much as I think Reggie's interesting and whatnot, I don't see these people thinking in terms of the rest of the market out there. I think they're unfortunately too much from the old guard of Nintendo.
Yeah, they just need to have exciting ideas and come to the table. The Wii was simple. That's the bottom line. It was simple and it was effective.
Cheap.
Be simple and effective. Like there's no if you put a Legend of Zelda slingshot game on the iOS where you're using the touch controls to do something, and if it ties back into a Link Between Worlds or my Wii U game, great, give it to me. I'm sold. Like they don't need to overthink it. Just put your brands where people are and make a shit ton of money doing it.
Well, and also think about exploiting those other pieces of hardware. Like now that there is this specification for hardware game controllers for iOS. Think about Nintendo making a hardware game controller for iOS and beginning to launch classic Nintendo catalog titles through the App Store to play them with.
And the other thing that they need to recognize is that they could own that. When you think of mobile video games, like you think of maybe like Rovio and a couple of like, that's who develops good whatever or popular games.
But you usually just think of like their one game.
Game.
Whereas Nintendo, I mean, the Game Boy. I mean,
if and that's the thing, like they have such a huge back catalog, but they also have a pedigree for developing great mobile games. They could own that space because Microsoft and Sony aren't bringing these experiences, to those devices in mass. They could show up day one with a Zelda game, a Donkey Kong game, a Kid Icarus, Mario, whatever, and just own the damn platform, like moving forward. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think this is the thing that is so frustrating about Nintendo is it's one of those things where I think from the outside, everybody usually comes down on the same 2 or 3 points that need to be done. And it's really frustrating that they haven't seen it up to this point. My only fear though is they still I'm just still not sure that they see it when they still are talking about non-wearable health monitors.
Yeah.
Like I still feel like okay, you're missing 99% of the picture, So we'll have to wait and see what happens. I think, I really think there's not many people I think out there that don't want to see Nintendo come back to their former glory. Even people that hate the Wii U, I think hate it because they're just not a big fan of it. Yeah, I think they love the idea of Nintendo coming back to where it is. So I really hope that these changes that hopefully are coming down the pipe.
Down the pipe.
Do the trick.
Down the pipe.
I didn't.
Warp pipe.
Oh man.
I didn't say that though, didn't I? All right, guys. Well, we are near the end of this week's Skirmish, but first we have our battle cries for the week, and my battle cry to start things is for a new free-to-play game that I just came across literally yesterday, but was kind of blown away by just how enjoyable it is. And that game is Loadout.
Yeah.
And Loadout is on. If you can get through Steam, it
Super
is
fun.
free to play.
Yeah.
It kind of got me. I was talking to Brent earlier. Kind of got me into thinking about just how far the free to play game experience has kind of come since the last time I really kind of got into it. Like the last time I really was playing it, it was like right when the Battlefield free to play was coming out, and I'd played like Battlefield Heroes and Rainbow Six, Ghost Recon Online and things like that were coming out. It was just one of those things. Like back then, I was kind of like, it's interesting, but that's still not as good as a console experience. I sit down and play this game and was honestly blown away by the art direction, the quality of the levels. It's a little light on content just yet. There's only 3 kind of characters you can pick from, but I mean, there's like a blue million different customizations you can do. The weapon customizations are
it's awesome,
honestly endless.
Yeah.
And anyway, it really kind of blew me away and got me thinking about how good free-to-play games are these days. It's even kind of got me thinking I may actually do a little review of this and throw it up on YouTube, because I've been threatening to do something on YouTube for quite some time. So definitely, if you haven't, it's check it out. It's on Steam. It's called Loadout.
Yeah.
Very fun game. Give it a shot.
And coincidentally, providing you with an alternate way to get your loadout.
All right, so Brent, what is your battle cry this week, buddy?
My battle cry this week goes out to the announcement that Rockstar heads Leslie Benzies, I hope that's how her name's pronounced, and then the Hauser brothers, Dan and Sam, are going to be the 18th, 19th, and 20th inductees into the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences Hall of Fame.
Okay.
They are going to be, as a matter of fact, the day you're listening to this, in theory, Microsoft Veep Phil Harrison is going to be presenting them with those Hall of Fame awards at the DICE conference Thursday, February 6th. And I'm a huge fan of Rockstar. They've made some of my favorite games. Some of my favorite games ever. My favorite game of all time currently, Red Dead Redemption. They've done some really fantastic work, and I think that this is. I think it's really great. I think that they are very deserving of the recognition that they're getting from this award, and so I just wanted to offer my congratulations and point this out to everybody that may also find it of interest. They join people like Shigeru Miyamoto, Gabe Newell, John Carmack, Sid Meier, some really big names in the gaming industry, and I think that they're going to sit right alongside those other people.
Nice.
They've also had something very big to contribute.
Yeah. It is nice always to get, like recognition from others in your industry instead of just all the millions of dollars you've already accrued from.
Yeah, I mean, it rings hollow ultimately, doesn't it?
No, I mean, it really is, kind of joking, but, they've been hugely successful financially, of course, but it is really nice to sort of see that, hey, look, we're successful because we've made some damn good games. So it's very, very cool.
Yep.
DK, what is your battle cry this week?
Earlier this week, we found out through marketing effort by Microsoft that you could ditch your PS3 and get $100 towards an Xbox One at participating Microsoft stores throughout the U.S. and Canada. And my battle cry goes out to just kind of how funny this is, but I kind of like them throwing down the gauntlet. On the one hand, they're like, trade in this thing and get $100 towards your Xbox One. But on the other hand, it does definitely seem pretty desperate.
I was going to say, it makes me think that they want to sell more Xbox Ones, which,
right.
Kind of worries
But
me.
I also, I want someone to tell me what they're doing with all of those PS3s. Like if someone,
they're selling them someone.
Yeah, I know, but it's just kind of funny because then you have like Microsoft having to sell PS3. I don't know. It's this whole situation seems funny.
What are they going to do with the PlayStation 3s once they have them?
Yeah. But this was a very interesting and funny situation.
Profit.
So my battle cry goes out to Microsoft for having the balls to do this. And I'd actually like to hear via Twitter or whoever else, whatever other channels you want, if you took them up on this, and if you would take them up on a similar campaign if Sony were to pull this off, trading your 360 towards a PS4. So anyway, very interesting that this stuff is going on. I find obviously all these marketing decisions fascinate me. But yeah. There you go, $100, Xbox
Oddly
One.
enough, interesting, they will only give you $80 for an Xbox 360. So, not sure what that means. No, I'm just kidding. Brett,
yes.
I think you have our member battle cry this week.
I do, and it comes from Tim.
Hey, Tim.
And Tim is sounding
off on
How do you pronounce that?
Timmy!
Sounding off on our topic from last time about Titanfall, the reduction of the online multiplayer numbers, etc. Mm-hmm. He says, here's my opinion on the matter. I'm a little disappointed, yet a little more excited at the same time, which sounds suspiciously like a Sprint commercial with James Earl Jones and Malcolm McDowell. Anyway, due to the player count of Titanfall, I am a huge Battlefield fan when it works. I love the big scale warfare it has. That is what I was kind of expecting in Titanfall as well. I was expecting big maps and lots of players. At the same time, however, I am more excited to see them doing something different. The first time I saw Titanfall, I thought to myself, that looks awesome, but it's another first-person shooter. Guess EA doesn't think we have enough of those. When the news came that they were talking about the player count down to 6 on 6 with a bunch of bots, I kind of liked it better because they're doing something different than everybody else, which is fantastic. The last thing I want is another COD or Battlefield clone.
True.
I think this will help Titanfall create its own unique identity in the large pool of first-person shooters. The reason I think they did this is because EA thinks it will be great for both hardcore gamers and casual gamers at the same time. If you suck at first-person shooters, you can probably still make out a couple of AI players before being annihilated yourself. So it will make you feel like you were still badass, even if you aren't killing any real players. Thus, making EA more money, which is all EA really cares about anyway.
Right.
Will this hurt the game? I'll wait and find out to make my final decision, but based on the evidence given, I don't think so. To me, it just makes the game more accessible.
Yeah.
So there you have it. A very interesting take on it.
I think very on the money, because it did kind of differentiate it and set it apart as well. Everyone now wants to see what the gameplay is going to be like. So for that, it's a win, and it draws less comparisons to Call of Duty, which by not being that thing and being something else. So more power to them, and I think it's great.
It differentiates itself in being the 6-on-6 version
of Call of Duty. Yes. Good job, Tim.
No, good. That was a good call, and we'll have to wait and see. Like you said at the very end, kind of will this hurt the game? Let's be honest. There's nothing's going to fucking hurt this game. I think it's going to be a blockbuster. So very interesting to see how that turns out.
And Tim's name spelled backwards is Mitt, and he did admit that he was. I don't know where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I don't really. It's
thank God.
All right, so as you can see, 2 weeks hasn't hurt us at all. We're still terrible. All right, no, I'm just kidding. Guys, thank you for joining us this week, and please join us once again next week when we will be
mercilessly,
whatever I say at the end of this, mercilessly cleaving shit from stuff, and things will happen.
Now with dirty
diapers. Isn't that what I say?
Yeah. Yes, that is what you say.
Anyway, for Daniel Kaiser and for Brent Adams, I'm your host, Tony Grice. Remember, cry havoc, and you'll be able to listen to this when there'll at least be like 3 more Nintendo press conferences.
Yes.
This and the next one. So it's only like a week.
And bring Nintendo games to mobile. Stop being a bitch.
Yeah.
Maybe Nintendo should just buy Apple. Oh, well.
No.
Maybe Apple should
buy Nintendo.
Maybe
I actually really have always thought Nintendo would be a perfect fit for Apple.
I gotta go.
Bye.